They called it the narco mothership, a steel beast gliding silently through the eastern Pacific, stuffed to the hatches with poison bound for American streets. But by the time the decks were cleared and the last brick of cocaine was hoisted onto the pier, the U.S. Coast Guard had pulled off the largest drug seizure in its history, a staggering 76,140 pounds of narcotics. This was more than an operation. It was a masterclass in detection, coordination, and decisive force. It was a rare moment when every moving part, from drones to fast cutters to elite air crews, locked into place to break a network that thought it was untouchable. It began in waters so wide and empty, they might as well have been another planet. Far from home, maritime patrol aircraft flying hundreds of miles off the coasts of Mexico and Central America spotted the first anomalies. These were go-fast vessels, low to the water, loaded down, and moving without running lights. Unmanned aerial systems orbited high above, relaying their feeds to analysts who tracked every knot and turn. The targets were patient and disciplined. They knew the game. But this time, the Coast Guard was not hunting alone. Customs and Border Protection, the U.S. Navy, and international partners from the Dutch Caribbean were already in the loop. They were feeding intelligence into Joint Interagency Task Force South, the nerve center that turns fragmented dots into actionable maps. The operation was engineered, not inevitable. By the time a vessel cleared international waters, the system knew its probable route, cargo load, and destination points. Airborne reconnaissance gave the intelligence chain its teeth. Maritime patrol aircraft and drones maintained persistent watch without alerting the traffickers. This living, breathing map of smuggling corridors could pivot instantly as conditions changed. Pilots and analysts used this data to vector Coast Guard cutters and Navy vessels into interception lanes long before the traffickers realized they were being hunted. The intelligence chain thrived on interagency collaboration that blurred the lines between law enforcement, military, and intelligence communities. DEA fed human intelligence, the Coast Guard provided maritime expertise, Customs and Border Protection monitored trade, and the Department of Defense delivered satellite capabilities. What once took days of back and forth now happened in real time. A tip about a suspicious warehouse in Colombia could be cross-checked with satellite imagery, correlated with unusual shipping manifests, and validated by a drone flyover, all within hours. By the time a decision reached the tactical teams, it was a near certainty. When the order came, Hitron, the helicopter interdiction tactical squadron, launched into the night. These pilots and gunners are trained to take down drug boats without hesitation, armed with precision rifles and the authority to use force when smugglers refuse to stop. From the air, they tracked the go-fasts slicing across the waves, relaying coordinates to the waiting cutters. The first intercept was textbook. Warning shots across the bow, engines disabled with surgical fire, and boarding teams poring over the gunnels to find bales stacked floor to ceiling. Then another. And another. In the Caribbean, in the Pacific, day after day, the net tightened. The Coast Guard cutter Hamilton became the centerpiece of the operation. From her decks, over 61,000 pounds of cocaine and 14,000 pounds of marijuana were cataloged, secured, and prepared for offload. This was a chess game played against transnational criminal organizations that rely on the sea as their lifeline. And in this case, they lost. The Coast Guard and its allies have refined a system that doesn't just intercept shipments, but anticipates them. This network of human intelligence and data analysis makes every route a gamble for traffickers. The operation was a psychological blow. These offloads are not hidden, they are broadcast. Press conferences, newsreels, and headlines splashed across the globe send a crystal clear message. No matter how sophisticated their networks, they are vulnerable. For cartels, reputation is currency. The networks survive on the belief that they can deliver and that their profits are inevitable. This operation shattered that belief. When the U.S. Coast Guard offloads that much seized cocaine, it tells every middleman, corrupt official, and rival that the leaders are not infallible. It tells lieutenants and soldiers that the bosses they answer to can be beaten. In the brutal, paranoid world of organized crime, that kind of doubt can be fatal. The humiliation cuts deeper than the financial loss. A loss of this magnitude is a public admission that their vaunted routes, trusted collaborators, and heavily guarded shipments were not good enough. When a shipment does not arrive, the fallout is instant. Investors lose trust, partners demand explanations, and the network fractures under the weight of the failure. Every fracture makes them weaker. That money is gone, and with it, months of operational investment. The loss forces cartels into a corner. Rebuild the route or abandon it, both costly and risky. Every dollar they now spend redeveloping strategy is a dollar not spent tightening their grip elsewhere. The Southern Caribbean has become the next chessboard in America's war on maritime drug trafficking. Cartels have become naval powers in their own right, using semi-submersibles and stealth boats to move tons of product. The U.S. military has begun deploying additional air and naval forces to the region. P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft, once used to track submarines, now fly persistent patrols and attack submarines quietly position themselves to shadow narco subs. The Coast Guard and Navy are coordinating in ways rarely seen outside combat zones. AI analyzes movement patterns to predict trafficking lanes with near-perfect accuracy. Unmanned aerial and surface drones track suspects for days without risking personnel. These efforts are designed to make every shipment riskier and less profitable. The message from military and law enforcement leaders is clear. The era of reactive enforcement is over. What is unfolding in the Caribbean and along Latin American coastlines is a shift to dominance. It is a campaign built on the conviction that control of the seas is not negotiable, and that maritime dominance is the key to breaking the cartel's grip on the hemisphere. Every successful interdiction buys time, saves lives, and erodes the myth of cartel invincibility piece by piece. The fight is far from over. Cartels will reroute, rebuild, and innovate. But this bust proves that disruption is possible, and that disruption matters. The cartels will adapt from a position of weakness, not strength. This was a campaign built on the premise that knowledge, when layered, verified, and acted upon with precision, does not just inform the fight, it defines it. The collapse of that shipment was not just a single operation. It was a demonstration of a model that will be studied, refined, and repeated. It showed that intelligence is not static, that operational reach is magnified by trust, and that tactical execution, when informed and supported, becomes unstoppable. The game has changed. The sea, once vast and forgiving, is now a battlefield mapped down to the inch. For every shipment plotted, there is a coordinated response waiting, patient and precise, ready to collapse it before it ever reaches the shore.